I can hop in with a demo here, and I want to give Sarah a preemptive shout out for all of her incredible work on this. So let me share my browser window. So I'm actually on demo right now. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to kind of go back in time before some of these changes were made so you can see how the app looked beforehand. So I have a chart here, which is just browsers by event count, very simple. And we have this color option here. So in this case, I have browser, right? Actually, let's do event counts instead. And I want to change the color palette here. So I'm going to click this. And you'll see that I have all these built-in hard-coded palettes, blues, greens, whatever. They're all quite nice. And then when I want to build a custom palette, I would come down here and click this custom, which immediately is kind of weird that it's like swatches and not a gradient. I click in, I come along, and when I want to edit this palette, it's functional, but like the design language is getting a little bit funky here. This is squared off. If I want to add colors, I can only add them at the end. If I want to delete, I can only delete off the end. So like if I wanted to change this yellow or remove this yellow, I'd have to delete all the way down to the yellow and then add back, right? So it's functional. And it's also linked to this specific chart, right? So if I were to make a new query here, that new query is not going to have that. It's not going to have that custom palette associated with it. So I'll come along to my new query, drop in events counts, come down to custom, and boom, it's not saved. There's no sort of concept of a global color palette here. So that's what I'm demoing today, is the first bit of code or functionality that's landed for global color palettes. So let's go to our settings page. Let's go to this new chart palettes. And you can see this is showing all of the color palettes that are built into the instance right now. So these are just hard-coded. By default, we have a bunch of discrete color palettes with swatches, and we have these continuous palettes as well. And I will start off by showing creating new global color palettes for the whole Omni instance here. So I'll keep it simple to begin with, and I'll just do a nice hot dog theme. And you'll see that it shows up here as a palette that's saved to your instance. If you want to edit this palette, let's say we added some colors here. Let's make this a blue color at the end. And I want to come back here and I want to delete an earlier color. You'll now see that there's this little selection piece that is highlighting the colors. So you can actually target and delete individual colors in your palette. On top of that, you can come into this nice hex editor. So if you're designing and you have a bunch of colors that you've already predefined outside of the app, you can just come along, you can drop those in to the app. And this is responsive as well. So I can come along and add new colors. I could come over here, delete a color, and it's going to update in the hex editor. So this is nice, hopefully pretty convenient to use hex editor that's paired with this updated color palette editor as well. So we've made our hot dog editor or hot dog palette a little bit nicer. So let's name it hot doggy, give it a new name, save it, and boom, we've got our new discrete color palette for our instance. We can also delete these palettes if we want to, so we can say goodbye to the hot dog. And then we can also, we built, or Sarah mostly did some design work to make the continuous palette editor distinct and hopefully better than the previous experience by adding this nice kind of gradient view as you're editing your continuous palettes.
Cool.
So if you add new colors in, you'll kind of see this gradient update as you go, right? You can add new colors, and it's all gonna hopefully be a pretty good experience. Looks like there's a little bug there where sometimes the
Gustav, remind me what happens if people are touching this when it's in use.
The behavior right now is like, let's say this is your default palette
Yep.
for your whole instance, and you edit this, it's not going to change on any charts it's currently applied to. So it only gets updated for new charts that are built on the default palette.
Okay. Are we? Do we want to have a way to push the change through potentially, or is that going to be possible? I'm envisioning someone doing a
Yeah.
rebrand and asking this.
We've talked about basically adding these palettes into themes at some point and using themes as the mechanism for them like bulk updating content, but we don't want this to like there's also the case for embed customers that like they don't want to accidentally change all of the saved content. We need it to be
Yeah,
able to
I could just
control.
see both literally be like,
Yeah.
I think this is one where neither of them is going to be universally right,
Yep.
but I think that people will ask for whichever one we don't do. So I think we're going to need to have some answer. Like it could be the API even, but I think we're going to need some way of figuring out how to push through an update globally if we don't do that by default. And if we do it by default, we're going to do it and not push it through. So like I feel like we're on the right side actually, because one is like action based, but I still think people are going to want that.
We wanted to make that opt-in, but yeah, we've talked about it as something that we'll like need to figure out the solve for of like the bulk updating in the future.
Yeah.
Wait, did I understand that correctly? Like if I have a palette called accent and I use it in 5 charts and then I go change the definition here of accent, those 5 charts are not going to change.
Yes.
That would be surprising behavior to me as a user.
I think it's going to change. I don't think you want it to. Also, like you're like Paul mentioned, you're going to want it both ways because I do stop for me wrong. But like if you have a chart saved with accent and then you change the definition of accent, is it still does that chart then like move into a custom thing? It's not like using the name accent. It's like keeps its original definition. Like I don't think you want to accidentally go like people will customize their charts and stuff specific to like the colors they're trying to use, and then if that just changes on them one day because somebody tweaked a palette here, it's bad.
Yeah, I completely agree with the statement that we need sort of both capabilities. I'm just saying when you give something a name and then you edit it in this global context, my expectation as a user would be that it would update things.
Yeah, we had discussed maybe even doing like if you update an existing palette that's here, it updates everywhere, but changing the default wouldn't change. Like if we switch, say your default palette is the Omni default, and then you switched it to the category 10, we wouldn't switch the default palette on any existing charts. Those charts would stay. So like there's like layers of options in here, which we need to figure out exactly what we'll do once we get into changing existing palettes, changing, the default, deleting the default, stuff like that.
We're not letting people touch our base ones, right?
No, not now. We're thinking about it. Eventually, it'd be nice to be able to duplicate them and like modify them, right? Like
Yeah,
it'd be cool
grab
to
the
get
hex
into
off them
these and
or something.
like duplicate one and rearrange the colors, like drag and drop and rearrange and stuff like that. It would be nice to be able to hide some, right? Like just reduce your options to just a few that you want people to have immediately available. So there's lots of opportunity here. But we're trying to focus hard on getting just your instance default to be set to something different.
Yep.
And just a lot of steps to get there.
I also missed this. What is the timeline on this?
This is for upcoming customer deal. So all this functionality is in the product right now, and then
Oh, it is. Okay.
we're working on the other side of this, which is having this in the physically flow through to the workbook and show up as a default or show up as a custom in here. So
yeah, so it's like you can build them, but you can't use them in the app yet.
Yeah, so I would say like within weeks is probably a fair timeline.
Cool.
But
thank you.
If people want to make palettes, they can start making palettes. We do have a flag for it, so we'll have to turn it on. But yeah, weeks.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I kind of highlighted it a little bit here just now, but if you remember from the beginning of the demo, in this kind of color options picker for the gradient, it's no longer a bunch of swatches down here. And so we're starting to pick at the small pieces of the workbook editor and bring some of the nice new UI. And so you can see it's not as harshly squared and rounded here. We still need to bring the rest of the new editor into this UI as well. But all that's coming in soon. So step by step.